Let us for some time concentrate on the Divine Spirit and pray for the welfare of the whole humanity. Shanti. Hari Om. That's it. Om Stavakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharmaswarupine Stavakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharmaswarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namaha Asato Ma Tadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God Incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. We have been studying Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, where he is giving instructions for practicing Vedanta in daily life. You must practice Vedanta every moment of your life. Then only you will be able to sustain and develop properly. So Sri Ramakrishna here comes as the Supreme Teacher, the spiritual teacher, to teach humanity how to practice Vedanta. He has shown the ways, he has shown the right direction, how to turn our mind towards God. The purpose of incarnation is to turn the people's mind towards God, to make people believe in God's glory, in God's functions. So if you follow what these incarnations say, then you are saved from all dangers of the world and You will develop remarkably well in spiritual life. Only thing is you have to follow the Guru very strictly. Not simply strictness. You must be very strict. Sri Ramakrishna said in chapter 27, I am taking his statement from the chapter. He has made it very clear. There was a sadhaka. He asked Sri Ramakrishna, Sir, what is the way? People keep on asking. Even if you answer 1,000 times, yet people will be there to ask the same question. Well, Sri Ramakrishna gives answer. He points out the way. He points out very clearly. What is that? Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel, faith in the Guru's words. Faith in the Guru's words. One attains God by following the Guru's instructions step by step. It is like reaching an object by following the trail of a thread. This is the instruction given by Sri Ramakrishna, the supreme teacher of the world. Everything lies in our practice. Sri Ramakrishna himself practiced to see God. What to speak of us? Without practice, you can't get God. Without practice, you can't get into real peace. Without practice, you will not be able to crush your most frightening ego. It means then, Guru occupies the central place in our spiritual unfoldment and final illumination. Guru is the way. Through him you have to go. Meaning, you have to practice what Guru says. Then it is meant you are following in his ways. Not simply hearing what he says, but doing what he says. Hearing must be translated into action. Action translates into fruit. Every religious ceremony, every study, every prayer, every meditation, every ritualistic worship begins only after paying due respect to the Guru. You must have noticed in our special worships on special occasions, the first worship is offered to Guru. So, in the spiritual path, the spiritual aspirant must seek a Guru. a famous Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad. It says, Parikshya lokan karmachitan brahmano nirvedamayan nasya kritakritena tadvijnanartham sa gurumeva abhigachet samitpanihi shrotriyam brahmanishtham. A person, if he has to come to Guru, he must have some kind of preparation for that. He must aspire for the Guru. How that aspiration comes? It won't come simply. There are millions of people in the world. That idea doesn't occur to many people. The idea of approaching Guru, the idea of living spiritual life. How many people do really understand that there is a spiritual life? How do people really believe that there is a higher life? They think what all the life they are leading is the only life, and that is the be all and end all of it. But there are some people, maybe very few, they scrutinize all the worlds gained by deeds, then they develop spiritual inclination. They get into a lot of troubles in the world, lot of problems in the world, they get into a lot of conflicts. Mind becomes terribly restless. It becomes impossible to manage anymore. They feel as if they are losing control over things. It's a state of utter helplessness, a kind of terrible crisis, we should say. At that point, the spiritual inclination may open up the way for people like that. Well, why are you depressed? Why do you feel you are lost? Why do you feel you are grabbed by terrible crisis? Don't worry, we will help you. Come. So, the spiritual inclination slowly opens up. Not that it opens to everybody. As I already told you, a very few people only show inclination towards spiritual life, and naturally it follows they should pay more attention to spiritual activities than the other things. So he should become a student, he should become a disciple, a humble disciple under a guru who is both learned in the scriptures, who is well established in the process of meditation. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna begins his discourse only after Arjuna has surrendered himself to him as a student, and he appeals to him to teach him. He was in the terrible stress of despondency, terrible confusion, not knowing what to do, just he surrendered himself to Lord Krishna. So, once you approach the Guru with a sincere heart, that's very important. It is not for making a show, oh, I am the disciple so and so. What does it matter? You may be his disciple. But if you don't do practice, if you don't sincerely try to remove weaknesses from your heart, you remain as you are before. Even though God's grace is available to you through the Guru, still you will not be able to make use of it on account of insincerity of the heart. So, it follows the Guru-Shishya relationship is very, very sacred. It is based on the total involvement, commitment and obligation of two persons, Guru and Shishya, who are bound to each other forever. Guru takes the whole responsibility of the disciple. His whole concern is how to see that disciple march onwards in his spiritual path. He is very much concerned about the disciple, even though the disciple is careless and not concerned about the Guru. Deeper than any other human relationship, it is the purest and most sublime relationship, the relationship between the Guru and the disciple. Here, the Guru, what I mean is the spiritual preceptor, not your academic teachers, though they are also Guru in one sense. But I am referring to the Guru who takes you in the spiritual path. I am dealing with that subject. Because what you see in the world, even though everybody is in one stage or other following the teacher, but how far the relationship between the teacher and the student exists, that's important. So here, there is communication between the Guru and the disciple. How can you develop faith in the words of Guru unless you come in touch with Guru constantly? Unless you are very sincere in your heart, unless your aspiration is very strong. So, the disciple, he doesn't merely ask questions and listen. He serves the Guru, he worships the Guru. That is our great tradition. All those traditions are going away. But all those conventions had tremendous effect on the personality. The Guru in turn assumes the responsibility of the all-round growth and spiritual progress of the disciple. Lord Krishna says in the Gita, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Know the truth by prostrating before the Guru and by questioning and serving him. By this instruction, by this injunction, Lord Krishna has set the guideline for the Guru-disciple relationship. That relationship was very prominent in our ancient culture and tradition. There's a famous story of Ekalavya in Mahabharata. He was very eager to learn archery. So he wanted to practice it. For some reason, Dronacharya, the great teacher of that time, didn't allow him to become his disciple, didn't accept him as yet his disciple, but Ekalavya was so eager, he was so much aspiring to learn archery. His whole mind was set on it. And he knew very well that Dronacharya was a great teacher of the time. He didn't want to accept anybody else. He didn't want to go to anyone for that matter. He has accepted him as his guru. Mentally, he has taken him, he has received him. And what he did? He began to practice archery before an effigy of his guru. He became the master of archery. Dronacharya came to him, witnessed it, convinced thoroughly that here is a person who has marveled at archery. He could even excel Arjun. But then, according to the tradition, the disciple should offer something to the Guru. Here he offered his thumb, which is very important to shoot the arrow. He offered it as a teacher's fee to the Guru. It illustrates to what extent this institution of the Guru inspired faith and loyalty in the hearts of the people. A person may defy, a person may disobey anybody, but never his Guru. On the other hand, in other words, what I should say, he should never disobey the Guru. If you are disobeying the Guru, you are cutting off the thread. You are cutting off the communication between Guru and disciple, which should not be allowed to happen. Whatever may be the reason, you must guard yourself to maintain all reverence, all devotion to the Guru. Then you will be recipient of divine grace of the Guru. According to devotional traditions, Guru occupies a place next only to a personal God. According to Advaitic tradition, this Guru concept is there everywhere. According to this Advaitic tradition, those who follow non-dualism, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Famous verse. Guru is identified with the highest reality. A monk who has announced everything, he may not worship any deity, but he is permitted to worship his own Guru. Indeed, devotion to Guru is for a man what chastity is for a woman. That Guru is Brahman, Vishnu, Shiva. He is the Supreme Brahman. This reverence for the spiritual preceptor has its roots in the metaphysical doctrines of God and the soul. Hindu scriptures recognize three kinds of gurus. I am just trying to make you understand all these ideas about Guru so that it helps you in your spiritual path, so that you may not derail in your spiritual journey. Be very careful about maintaining your attitude towards your Guru. There are three kinds of Gurus. The first one, the divine Guru. The second one, the inner Guru. The third one, the human Guru. Let us first consider the divine Guru. According to Hinduism, God is not only the cause of life and existence, but is also the source of all knowledge. Vedanta teaches that consciousness is self-luminous and is the nature of Atman. An object is known only when the light of Atman falls upon it and illumines it. What is true of external cognition is true also of internal cognition or spiritual experience. Since according to all schools of Vedanta, the individual self is either a part or a reflection of the Supreme Brahman, all knowledge ultimately originates in Brahman. That's what Sri Ramakrishna means when he says Satchidananda is the only Guru. He says in the Gospel. In all beings, our immanent aspect of the Supreme Divine Guru exists as the inner controller, Antaryami. The Yoga of Patanjali holds a different view of God according to this school, God is a unique kind of Purush who is omniscient because he is never restricted by ignorance, experience and karma. Since he is not bound by time, he never loses his omniscience and therefore the primordial teacher of mankind. Sapurveshamapi guruhu kalena anavachedat. Kalena anavachedat. Sir, purveshamapi guruhu kalena anavachedat. That's the sutra. Although all knowledge is within you, and you need not get it from outside, still somebody is necessary to help you understand your own knowledge. That's why a teacher or guru is necessary. The guru helps you go within and understand yourself. To help you, your guru must know something of himself. From where did your guru get that knowledge? It must have been learned from somebody else. So there must be a chain of gurus. Then one who is the first guru, whom do you call the first guru? There may be hundreds of thousands of gurus, but there should be a primary one. There should be an infinite reservoir of knowledge from which all knowledge came in the beginning. So, the Supreme Purush or Ishvara is the Guru of the Gurus. Swami Vivekananda explains this yogic concept in his complete works. He says, it is true that all knowledge is within ourselves, but this has to be called forth by another knowledge. Although the capacity to know is inside us, it must be called out. And that calling out of knowledge can only be done, the yogi maintains, through another knowledge. Dead inanimate matter never calls out knowledge. It is the action of knowledge that brings knowledge. Knowing beings must be with us to call forth what is in us. So those teachers who have experienced the truth were always necessary. The world was never without them, and no knowledge can come without them. God is the teacher of all teachers, because these teachers, however great they may have been, gods or angels, are all bound and limited by time, while the Supreme God is not. In Shvetashvatara Upanishad, it is found a synthesis of the yogic and Vedantic views of God as Supreme Teacher. Yo Brahmanam Vedadati Puram Yo Vai Vedam Saprahinoti Tasmai Tammadevam Atmabuddhi Prakasham Mumukshurvai Sharanamaham Prapadye. Shvetashvatara tells. He who at the beginning of creation projected Brahma, the creator, and who revealed the Vedas to him, seeking liberation. I take refuge with that effulgent one whose light turns the intellect towards the Atman. This idea later on became a central one in the Puranas and an important tenet of Hindu theology. Brahma, also called as Hiranyagarbha, is the creator. God, referring to the Supreme God, He is the creator of all creators. He is also the teacher of all teachers. During cosmic dissolution, all the universes with their creators get resolved back into God, who alone that exists without a second, embodying all knowledge. When a new kalpa is about to begin, God first projects Hiranyagarbha and communicates knowledge to him. From him, the great rishis gain spiritual knowledge by practicing austerity. This spiritual knowledge is transmitted from generation to generation by a succession of illumined teachers. In a well-known verse popular to Advaitic tradition, the source of the knowledge of non-dualism is traced from one's own Guru through Shankara to God Himself. The prayer says, I constantly salute the Supreme Lord Narayan, Brahma, Vasishtha, his son Shakti, his son Parashara, his son Vyasa, his son Shuka, his disciple the great Gaudapada, his disciple Govinda, who is a prince among yogis, his disciple Sri Shankaracharya, his four disciples Padmapada, Hastamanaka, Trotaka and Sureshwara, and also my own revered preceptor. We offer salutations to all the gurus this way. There is another tradition in which God is regarded as a guru in another sense, namely God as Vak. Vak means the word. All the human knowledge is connected with sound symbols, and without words, thinking is impossible. Hindu tradition holds that all words are only different manifestations of one primordial work, the Vak, the first manifestation or utterance of divine wisdom. Kathopanishad says, Prajapatirva idamasit, tasya vagvidhiyasit. That is, in the beginning was Prajapati, the Supreme Lord, and Vak, the word, was his second. This is so very similar to the famous opening line in St. John's Gospel. There it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Christian theology identified the Word with a male, namely Christ. The word Vak, on the other hand, is in feminine gender. It was identified in the Rigveda with the Divine Mother, Saraswati, who is still being worshipped as a goddess of wisdom by many Hindus. This is not surprising, because who is the first teacher of man? The mother. It is a mother who communicates to the baby the first knowledge, and it is at her knees that the child picks up the primeval vocabulary of the race. The Chandogya Upanishad, another Upanishad of the Vedas, identifies the word Vak with Gayatri, personified into a female deity, and says that the entire creation is a manifestation of Gayatri. Next comes Tantras. Later on they developed this doctrine of the word into the metaphysical principle of the Logos, that is Nada Brahman, and identified it with the Divine Mother of the universe. There is another tradition, the fourth tradition, of looking upon God as the teacher, is that which identifies the avatar, the incarnation, with the Supreme Godhead. That is the fourth tradition. According to this tradition, the incarnations are the teachers of the world. Lord Krishna, Lord Christ, Lord Buddha, Sri Ramakrishna. Lord Krishna, Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum. So this Guru concept has so much developed. The more reverence, devotion, love, steadfastness you cherish towards your Guru, the more and more you become closer to God. Thank you.